The work of Chief White House photographer provides a peek at the daily life of the Commander-in-Chief, an artful collection of thousands of photos portraying the country's leader dealing with crisis, intimate meetings and moments of relaxation, and just plain clowning around. We discussed the preservation of a president's legacy with Chief White House photographer Eric Draper on Newsmakers. You know the photos of President George W. Bush. Who could forget the president at New York's Ground Zero at the World Trade Towers? This is the man who snapped that photo. It's one of thousands Chief White House photographer Eric Draper took while serving the 43rd president over 8 dramatic years. He also wrote the book, a photographic portrait of the presidency of George W. Bush. It's titled Front Row Seat. Eric Draper, how are you, sir?
Doing great, thank you.
There is just something about photographs. And yours in particular. We'll kind of get into the texture and the emotion that seems to be like a real National Geographic quality. Is that a good way to put it? I mean,
you can describe it that way.
Yeah. But photos take you to a place, and you relive those moments. You had so many. The photo at Ground Zero, especially. I think people remember that video. You were there on the ground. You're taking a photo that expresses an emotion, but you're feeling it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'll never forget that day because it was a long emotional roller coaster of a day. I mean, it started out in Washington, D.C. with there was a prayer service at the National Cathedral. We flew to New York City. Inside the helicopter, as we approached New York City, you can smell the smoke from the fire. On the ground, you can still feel the heat. And then the emotion from the firefighters, I'll never forget. I mean, they were tired, they were frustrated, and they were angry. And you can see that they were looking to the president for leadership, like they wanted him to do something. They were hugging him, saying, "Go get him, George." And you can feel that moment building to the bullhorn moment. And the president really delivered and stepped up, and that was all just impromptu. He just delivered right on the spot. And I remember, I was front and center because it was just so many people there. But when he said those famous words, "I hear you, the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear from all of us," I mean, the hair on my back stood up because I knew that was a historic moment because the crowd erupted and started chanting "USA, USA," and I knew that he really hit it out of the park at that moment.
How much information are you privy to? There's a photo here where the president is getting the call. He's down in New Orleans. He's receiving the phone call of what is taking place. How much do you know at that time? Because you're right there. You're taking the photos. Are you aware of the inside info as it's coming in as well?
Some of it I am. There's a lot of reaction to my job, and that is, but being the key is being front and center, and almost not really stopping to ask questions because my job was to simply observe. It was a unique role in the White House. I wasn't a participant. And I would ask questions later to kind of connect the dots. Like, I would ask myself, okay, what did I just photograph? How important was it? And some things were important, some things are not as important. And then later, years later, you find out, oh yeah, that's what that meant. And that's what really made my job fascinating. Was not knowing. Obviously there are some things that hit you over the head, and then there are more subtle things later as a collection of photos. Once you start editing and putting together a book like this, you really see those moments come alive.
8 years of, as it is described, a dramatic presidency. Do you think about how blessed you were to have been placed there with your talents and your skills to deliver this 8-year period of American history?
Well, when I got the job, I knew it would be an incredible experience. I had no idea what the 8 years would be like. And all I tried to do was do the job the best to my ability. And luckily I had pretty good background, so I had something to bring to the job. But man, it was just unbelievable, some of the events that I witnessed, and it was so unpredictable, a lot of it. But it was definitely a really unique situation to be in.
We had the opportunity to interview David Kennerly, who was President Ford's chief White House photographer last year. And I asked him about when you're in the presence of the Commander-in-Chief, and does the President play to the camera or not?
Gerald Ford never played to the camera. I mean, the good news for me was he literally didn't even think about me being around. After initially getting through this period when I was in there day and night, really, he was the perfect subject for a photographer because he let me be and never approved photos, never came back and said, I don't like the way I look in something, and never once, never had that conversation.
So is that the case? I mean, does the president let you do your own thing? Is the president aware of times to kind of play to the... what was the relationship with you and George W.?
With me, he left me alone. There were days would go by when he wouldn't even address me. He wouldn't, which is, I love that part, to be able to disappear, to literally almost become invisible. Because I wanted to make real moments. I wanted to capture, as is. And when you're in these really intense situations, days like 9/11, the president's so occupied, so busy, and everyone's focused on their job. Where, I could be almost anywhere, and it was almost as like a dream almost. I was standing 2 inches from him, literally on the airplane, for example, that day, and it felt like he was looking through me because he was so focused on the decisions he had to make. And then, of course, I'm always cognizant of his comfort level. So, I would definitely, choose my moments to be right there in front of him and back off, and so there's definitely a little dance. And through the years, I learned his personality. I learned when to be in his face and when not to be in his face, and I think that helped a lot too.
There's a perception of the president and the reality. You were around him for 8 years. Who is the real George W. Bush?
Well, that's a big question. I think this book reveals a lot of the side of the president that people don't realize. I had the opportunity to see him not only as commander-in-chief, but as a father, as a husband, as a dog owner, and he's well-rounded. I mean, he's very grounded. He's a family man. Family's very important. His friends are very important, and his faith is very important to him. I think he's a wonderful person to work for, which I found out because when I was a journalist and I covered him, as a AP photographer. But until I worked for him, I really didn't know him. To see his personal life, his discipline, for example, the way he runs and manages his staff, which is really top-notch. I mean, even just simple things from starting meetings on time. He hated to start his meetings on time or late. His meetings started either early, on time or early, typically early. He felt that keeping people waiting was rude, and he was always very open, and always had a great way to break the ice with people on a personal level, which I was blessed to be able to capture a lot of those moments between meetings. From a janitor in the hallway to the King of Saudi Arabia, he had a gift at connecting with people, and that's what a lot of people don't realize and don't have the opportunity to observe.
How did he break the ice with you?
Well, I'll tell you a story. My first official day on the job, we were leaving Texas. This is before the inaugural in 2001. And we're leaving Texas. And I'm standing on top of the stairs of the airplane when the day before I was in the bottom with all the press. And I had a lot of questions. I didn't know exactly how my job would go. I didn't know how much access I would have. And he walked up to me, and I made a picture. I didn't make the book, but it's a picture of him looking back at Texas for the last time. He's holding his cowboy hat. And right after I made that picture, he turns to me and he says, "Welcome aboard, Eric. We are going to see the world together. We'll see everything." And that's what he said to me while shaking my hand. And I think he wanted to put me at ease at that moment. And he gave me exactly what I needed. And from there, it was smooth sailing. I thought, wow, this is going to be a great ride.
Did you spend personal time together? Did you have lunch together? Did you have drinks or whatever it was that the president wanted? Did you play tennis together, anything like that?
I tended to leave him alone during his personal time because I saw him so much otherwise. But we did spend a lot of time on the ranch, for example, which is one of my favorite places to go. I mean, didn't have to wear a suit. It was hot. He loved the heat, but he would also recruit staff like myself to help him with projects on the ranch, you know, from cutting cedar to making a trail for his bike riding, and that time was really fun, and it was like a bonding time.
And your favorite photo as well has those Texas roots.
That's right. Yeah, there's a photo in the book. There's a chapter called The Western White House, you know, mostly photos from the ranch in Crawford, Texas. And there's an image, it's almost a portrait, and he's got the cowboy hat, kind of an iconic shape. He's driving his pickup truck, the only place where he can actually drive on his 1,600-acre ranch. And what's also interesting is the timing of that photo, which is a month before 9/11. And so every time I see that picture, there's a sense of innocence, and you know, a month before the world changed.
And I'd mentioned to you before we started recording here, you know, reading the memoir of his life, one of my favorite sections of the book is his early days in Texas. So there is a real connection with him as being down to earth, wearing the cowboy hat, kind of driving off, you know, into the future. And that's something that you've experienced, like you said. You got to see the world together. The cover of this book, this is February of 2001, correct? Glasses in mouth. What's taking place there?
2002.
2002?
Yeah. Yeah, the cover, you know, that picture just stood out in terms of the composition, the lighting. I love the fact that you see the columns, and you know, you see that sense of what the White House is all about, and then the seriousness of the job, which you see on his face. So that photo just really captures him, and it captures the job of being president of the United States, you know, the toughest job in the world as far as I'm concerned, because I watched it for 8 years.
And there are those playful photos as well with the First Lady. Describe their relationship and what was taking place behind the scenes.
Yeah, they had a very solid relationship. They loved to play around, and what really amazed me through the years was watching them entertain each other in such, you know, high pressure situations, and I think they really used their relationship to really get by and deal with the pressures of the job, and they're great together. And but I also tried to leave them alone at the same time, because what you find out is that the president has so little personal time on the schedule, or even just in general. And I tried to really pick and choose my moments during those times.
But there are a lot of family photos in there as well. You see a lot of 41 and 43 together. You see the kids together. What type of a family dynamic was playing out?
Very normal. And I was just shocked at how normal family they are. Very traditional. Every part of the family, you know, I met his brothers, his sister, and of course the children. And like clockwork, they would get together for every holiday. I spent 8 Christmases at Camp David, and that's when the family would gather. And I love photographing the family together. And like I said before, you know, giving them the space, you know, so I would try to back off as much as possible. There's one Thanksgiving, though, there was a place at the table with my name on it as I was about to leave, and the First Lady, Mrs. Bush, invited me to sit down. So there I am, the only non-family member sitting at the table, and I had his father, you know, President H.W. Bush, sitting on my right, and then I had the daughter, Jenna, sitting to my left, and it was just, but they made me feel like family. I mean, and that's who the type of people that they are. And
you were eventually named special advisor.
Well, technically, special assistant.
Special assistant
to the president. Yeah.
So, what was that job? What did that entail?
Oh, you know, it's a title. It's kind of you get some perks in the West Wing, and it's a title that are given to people that really you know, support the president, and I was around so much that I was the only one who didn't have that title, so they finally gave it to me after the second term started.
And there's the public side and the private side of a president. When photographing a president, I mean, it's legacy building in so many ways. So you're trying to capture those private moments, but publicly there is this aura that you're trying to also give off as well, right?
You're right. I mean, since I had the ability to witness the whole full circle, I tried to capture everything. And I'm not really thinking in terms of what you're saying in the immediate sense. I'm just barely keeping up with, and that's the great thing about being a photographer is I'm so focused on the subject matter, I'm so focused on the technically that I'm not thinking in the bigger picture until afterwards. And that's where, after you have this huge collection of photos, after you see every part of his life, and you start to piece together the edit. For example, like this book, for example, I think is definitely a well-rounded representation of what it's like to be president. And that's where you start to tell the story of a president.
I'm sure the style comes second nature. You've been doing it for so long. But can you describe it to the viewer? Can you explain some of what goes through your mind and what you're looking for in some of that 1% of photos that are the ones?
Well, you're looking for storytelling photos. You're looking for capturing emotion. You're looking for, compositionally a photo that's pleasing to look at as well. But not missing a moment, a very important moment that can tell a story. And that's what I tried to do. Yeah.
Well, it seems like it touches the soul sometimes oftentimes it's those portrait type photos where you're looking into the eyes or you see reaction. Am I onto something here? Because there's something about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, everyone reads photos differently, but photos can capture an emotion, and it can pull on your heartstrings depending on your experiences as well. And like photos from 9/11, everyone can relate to their experience, and so that's what happens. And photos like that can take you back to that time. And you realize just how important this job of being the White House photographer is, of capturing those moments so we can always look back and remember. Going
to war, I think he struggled with. I think the aftermath of war, visiting injured troops. There is one of my favorite photos. I believe he's in Bethesda, and he's leaning over this soldier whose arms are wrapped, and he's kissing him on the forehead. That to me was just so touching.
Yeah, and that's one of the untold stories through the years, how much compassion the president had for the troops, for the people that he sent into harm's way. He had lots of opportunities that he would go to Bethesda, to Walter Reed. He would meet with families of the fallen, I mean, dozens, hundreds of times. Would never turn it into a photo op. It was all private, and a couple of photos made it into the book. But yeah, those were very intense and emotional meetings, and he was able to look them in the eye and talk to them about his decisions, and it was very, very inspiring. And a lot of those troops really enjoyed those visits.
Were there times where you were in those situations where you emotionally were touched and had a difficult time?
Oh yeah, yeah, powerful moments, moments that are just inspiring. Soldiers that have lost limbs and are telling the president that they'll go back in a minute to go fight again. Stuff like that. It's just incredible. There's one moment, I can't remember the soldier's name, but the president made him a bet that when he is up and running with his false legs, that he can go running with him at the White House. And 2 years later, he did, and they both ran on the South Lawn. Stories like that are just very powerful and inspiring.
Over the 8 years, how did the president change? How did you change as a person?
Well, I get that question a lot about the president, and obviously he changed physically, but I still think he's the same person that I met years earlier. The same person with focus and determination, and I don't think he changed at all inside. And myself, to experience everything that I did, to travel as much. It was just an amazing experience, and that's a good question. No one asked me how I changed, but but it was a tough job. It really was a tough job. The days were long, but I really enjoyed it.
What did you learn about politics while you were there?
Ooh, wow, that's a good question. Politics, you really see what it's like for people to be around power. It's always interesting to see people change when the president walks into the room, and that was always fascinating to me. So that proximity to power was a fascinating thing to observe. But one thing I learned is just how many great, incredible, the White House, you work with the best and the brightest, and it's true. It was incredible staff, worldly people, smart people. You have down to like even the White House butler, and those people are like walking, talking history books. And I really enjoyed being around those types of people.
Number of chapters in the book. Is there? We're going to tease the book, obviously. But is there one chapter in this book that that is one of your favorites, I guess, or really tells a great story?
There's the 9/11 chapter, I think, is very intense. It describes mostly the photos from that particular day, from the school to all of the events on Air Force One and how that day played out, and then some of the emotional moments afterwards. The bullhorn moment. I think that chapter is probably the most powerful chapters in the book. On a personal level, the Western White House is a great chapter, showing the president on a personal level. But then there's also a chapter called Life in the Bubble, which kind of encompasses a lot in terms of all the unique, funny, quirky moments that can happen. Like there's a picture of the president riding a bike through the West Wing, and moments like that. And that's what I really enjoyed, capturing those surprise moments and waiting for those moments too, because there's a lot of waiting that happens in a job like that, where you're kind of just sitting around. But that's where I would also turn the camera around and actually explore other subjects inside the White House, including some of the other senior staff. There is always something to photograph.
Yeah, there's a photo of the president coming down a flight of stairs, and Condoleezza Rice is playing the piano. I love that photo. There's just something about that.
Yeah, that was a very unique situation. That was inside a guest home in Russia. Russia was the host of the G8 conference, and the president was upstairs in the residence area. And Condoleezza Rice had showed up early, and there's a piano sitting there, and she's a great piano player, and she started playing. And I'm thinking, you know what? I bet you the president's going to come down and see who's playing the piano, and he came. Because I kind of positioned myself to see the stairwell, and he came down right after she started playing, and just kind of a very unique situation.
And you didn't stand still. I mean, after this presidency, you followed Mitt Romney on the campaign trail as well.
Yeah, I guess I haven't got enough of it yet. But I like having I like working for great people. I like having a mission. I like working with a great team, and that's one of the reasons why I joined that campaign.
Did you notice a difference between the styles of leadership there?
Oh, very, very different people. Very different. Yeah, I don't think you can really compare the two, to be honest. But and that was really refreshing for me. Just almost like starting over. Developing another relationship, and I enjoyed it. It was definitely, and it was just enough time to, I had to recover from the White House, and I was kind of ready to take something on again, and I had fun doing it.
You're kind of laying low now, but I can see you have a love for sports. Plenty of sports photographs. You're doing portraits. So, what's next on the horizon? I like the variety of work that I'm doing now, from
corporate events to even some advertising photography. I still do a little bit of editorial work, so I like the mix, to be honest. And then, of course, you know, once the election cycle rolls around again, you never know. I might be in it again.
All right, Chief White House photographer for George W. Bush. The book is Front Row Seat. Eric Draper, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.